Others quickly.
Good morning, sir. My name is Aditya. I've done my BTech Electronics from JP University, and I have more than 2 years experience in telecom sector. I was working with BSNL, and I have programming experience of C, C++, and Java also.
Okay, good. Yeah. Next.
Hi, sir. This is Nishtha, and I have done my BTech from AKTU, and I have no work experience until now. I know a little bit of C. That's it. I'll be passing out this year.
Okay. Next.
Good morning, sir. My name is Tanya, and I recently completed my graduation from Dalsing College in English Honours. And apart from this, I also did one internships. Because of that, I have some fair idea about programming, like Python only.
So you have used your Python programs in your internship?
Not that much, but have an idea like how to use.
Okay, good. And others, please go ahead.
Good morning, sir. My name is Anam, and I've completed my BTech in Electronics and Communication. And last year, I've completed Tableau certification course. So I've taken admission in Ematicus to know more about data science and to gain some knowledge. So that's why I've joined Ematicus. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Anam. Next.
Good morning, sir. This is Prathivesh. I completed my graduation in BSc Maths Honours from Sri Venkateshwara College, Delhi University. And I have only done languages which were a part of my course, which included LaTeX, HTML, and Wolframa Mathematica.
Okay. So any of these stat related programming languages like Java or R or Python you have not?
No, sir, no previous experience.
Okay, sure. So next, please. Next.
Hi, sir. This is Anirudh.
Okay.
Sir, I did my graduation in BA Economics Honors, and after that, I had a job experience of 2 years. Post that, I did an online course in data analysis that involved Python language. So I have a bit of idea regarding Python, and after that, I joined Ematicus.
Okay. So you have used Python for executing projects, Anirudh?
Sorry, sir, I didn't get you.
So you have used Python language for any project execution purposes in your previous job?
Yes, not jobs, sir. I did a course, and yes, I made certain projects with, using Python language.
Okay. Apart from it, in the chat, I can see here Pushp has also written. So who is a graduate of economics, no experience in program language. Okay, sure. So have we covered? Is all of you have responded, or anybody is remaining? I think. Okay, please go ahead. Please go ahead. Who all are remaining? Please go ahead quickly, because then I will talk about an interesting thing and we will move forward. I think Guljar Singh is saying Please go ahead. Who all has not given your introduction? Hello, am I audible?
Yes, audible, sir.
Uh, Please go proceed. Who all are remaining? Okay, Guljar Singh is, he did diploma in NIG. ERP. Okay. Varsha, Pushpesh. Okay. And management. Okay, Pushpesh is also completed BTech, and then so I think that shows us this is a it's a real diverse class, and definitely we have various levels of skill set and understanding of programming language. So some of us are basically just starting the journey of programming. However, some of us has explored the programming, and some of us has actually used Python programming also. So it is a real diverse class. At the same time, you can see this diversity is going to help us because we can also exchange various thoughts among us. Apart from it, there is another interesting thing that we have various diverse domain people here. Like we can see people from digital analytics back, I mean digital analytics experience. We can see people from biotech. We can see people from various means management is definitely overall as across domains. So that experience also when we are learning the language, because we are learning the language for a purpose. We are learning the language to use it for business analytics. Correct? Like earlier, when people used to learn Python, they used to learn Python for web development or game development. But now, if you all see why we are learning Python, definitely we are learning Python because we want to use it for business analysis purpose, advanced analytics purpose, and to apply it into data science and machine learning purpose. Am I right, class? Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So I'm getting the responses. Yes, 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 yes. Because here when we are trying to understand Python, we are not trying to learn Python because we want to write Python, because Python is a language. It could be used for various diverse applications. Even if you see, the Python could be used for writing website scripts. It is a very essential component of game development. Even in my experience, we have used Python for simulation. Simulation is something like, you might have some of you have played games. You anybody who has a habit of playing games? Yes, I can see Prithvi, Aditya. Yes, Push, I can see. So in game, you come across various scenarios, correct? Where there is a logic that if you do these actions, it is going to take out this outcome. If you do an alternative action, it is going to take you to an alternative outcome. So that type of simulations could also be, yes, it is a duplication of reality. Means you are basically giving various situation and choices. So Python is also used for that purpose. So nonetheless, that is not our scope. So when we are going to learn Python here, we are trying to going to restrict ourselves into the application of Python into analysis of data, application of Python, writing some of the statistical function or data science and machine learning application. Okay, on that note, let's start our journey for today. So in this session, what we are going to cover, this is the plan. Why Python? What and in between the session, I am trying to go, because it's a diverse class. That is the thing I was trying to understand. I will not try to go very fast, but if you think that pace is also going a bit slow, you can also give your feedback. I will take your feedback on that. But some of you who has already done some of the parts in Python, or you have some exposure to Python, you have to also understand that this is a diverse class, so you have to also be accommodative to your fellow um, classmates. At the same time, those who are very new, probably it's also a humble request to them that you have to also put sometimes more effort to understand and catch up with your concepts quickly. Yeah, you can revise during your at home, or during your other works, so that you should not lag behind, so that other students in the class is also getting support. So can we have that commitment? I just need a quick yes in the from everybody. Great. So now we are working as a team, and when we work as a team, oh, Guljar Singh is asking what commitment. Commitment means I am asking about commitment from each other, that whosoever is lagging behind, they will try to catch up, and whosoever has already gone forward, they will extend their hand to the other classmates. So Gulzar, you have understood? Okay, good. So you are all in the same page, and let us start our journey of our trail. Now, actually, there is a very interesting concept of social learning. We do not call it no more learning, we call it as a trail. That means it is something like a journey where we are going through various phases, ups and downs will come on the way, but we'll overcome as a team. So first, in this session, let us try to understand why Python. We'll try to understand about the various flavors and platforms. Some of the, I have already started talking about the Python, some of the flavors and application. We will try to understand much more about it. Then we will install Anaconda. We will go into Python IDE Spider. I will also show you some of the other examples of IDEs. We will set your work directory, the libraries that you should know, and then concept about IPython and Python notebook. First, this is very essential thing, because why we need a language to know? Because data on its own is useless unless you can make a sense out of it. That means we have to harness the power of data. And when we talk about harnessing the power of data, then the actually analysis happens in two places. First, it happens in your mind, where you try to map a pathway, or if it is very difficult to map your pathway into in a in your mind, then what you can do, you can actually scribble it down in a piece of paper, or you can actually write down the steps in Excel or any of the project management libraries. However, you have you should actually try to analyze things in a stepwise manner. So analysis is not about tools or technologies. So if you think that you have learned Python language, that means you have become an analyst. That is not true, because analysis using Python and knowing analytics are basically two different things. So these tools will enable you, tools and technique will, it's something like if you are going into an war, you know some of the type of weapons you are carrying. This is one type of weapon, but the war you have to fight and you have to win it is depending on your ability to win the war. Weapons are only helpful to face the war. That's it. So that is the reason, knowing, please always remember in your mind that having a knowledge about Python programming is not equivalent to having a knowledge in analytics in Python programming. So we will see how we can go into that stage. Because for there, you have to understand about the business strategy, you have to understand about handling various type of data types and their strategies for that. And a role of business analytics is into two parts. One, analyzing basically the past business performances. So that could be something like business intelligence. But at the same time, it is also very essential to give the insights. Insights are something like, you know, you have any one of you have understanding about what are the type of analytics or probably type of statistics we use? Anyone who has worked before? Has idea about various type of statistics we use?
Sir, I think in data science there are two
Yeah,
types.
I'm getting some good answers. So please go ahead. So you are trying to tell two types.
Yeah, one is descriptive and another one is inferential.
Yes, actually you have given a very textbookish, and your answer is absolutely correct. But it is most like what we used to read into textbook, early old previous textbook. But now you can see it is definitely descriptive. It is predictive, and there is one more thing, that is prescriptive. And now with advantage of machine learning and AI, there is also cognitive. So there are four layers. Okay. So basically, this prescriptive, predictive is something like basic insight that you are finding a trend which is going to play a role in future. Then prescriptive means you are actually recommending the business you should use these particular ways or methods which can actually change your business direction. And cognitive is basically where you are creating a system that it will control some of the outcomes. Okay, nonetheless, thanks a lot for all of you for good answers, and thanks a lot for making this class interactive, because I also feel a lot more enthusiastic in that way. And to enable this hindsight and insight, you have to understand about data and statistical models. You have to understand about various quantitative analysis skill set. You have to understand about evidence-based management system, and you have to also understand about various, and all of this will lead to an outcome that is informed business decision making. That means if you see in earlier management days, the executive used to say straight from gut. That means with minimal data and their experience, they used to take business decisions. But gone are those days. Now the business decision to take, it is something like you are flipping, means earlier it was something like you have some of the understanding, and based on that you are basically going to flip a coin, and there could be a probability of outcome. But now you will try to see, based on the available data, what could be the potential outcome of decision A versus decision B versus decision C. And we still, we know many a time decisions go wrong, but at least the potential of wrong outcomes are limited over here. We all are in the same page. On that note, let's move forward. So let us try to understand about business issues. So there
Sir,
are
just a
different.
minute.
Mhm. Hello, somebody has asked me a question.
Sir, actually, sir, can you once again display the previous slide?
Okay,
Sir, actually,
okay.
my network was stopped for some time. So what you told at the beginning of the slide?
Okay, so may I know who is speaking? And just hold on.
And I am Gulzar.
Okay, so Gulzar, in this slide, what we have spoken. So in the class, anybody who has understood it very clearly will try to uh, summarize it for Gulzar. Then I will also add on to that. This actually also helps to solidify your understanding, and it will also help the class because I will see that how people are understanding what I am trying to communicate. Anybody wants to give a go? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Analytics in Python is different from proper business analytics that we do in the company. So knowing only Python doesn't mean that we know everything about analysis. That's a different field, but we will be using this tool for analyzing. That's what Sir told in the beginning of the slide.
And thanks a lot for Nitisha for adding. But I will also add. So in Gulzar, basically in this slide, what we have discussed that it's not learning a tool is equivalent to understanding about business analytics because tools are something that is going to augment you. It will give you some of the abilities, but it is more of a practical implementation of it. So you have to learn the tool, its application, but at the same time you have to also learn about the framework of analytics. You have to learn about various application areas of analytics. You have to understand about the application in terms of business intelligence, application in terms of predictive prescriptive analytics. So on that note, let me move forward. Now, interestingly, what are business issues? So some of you have already, rather than going into the slide, some of you have already worked. So have you ever experienced any business issue? In the class, some of you have experience working, correct? Anybody want to talk about it? Or probably then I will also explain about this slide. But anybody wants to talk about if they have ever experienced a business issue? No, nobody is talking. Okay, so basically, if you have, I think probably with your experience, you have not gone into basically management level. So that is the reason you have not encountered much of the business issues. So business issues could be anything. It could be either operational issue, it could be issues of strategic nature. So what are operational issues? That means if you are doing a day-to-day operation, probably you might encounter decisions which is going to change the course of the business from this example, what we are seeing in the slide, you can see it's a company which is currently working for some of the, so it is something like you can see a group of people are sitting on a board and they are discussing on various issues, and this could be example of a digital media company, it could be example of a healthcare company of any sort. Now, like the first one, it is something like it could be example of issue of a FMCG company. How do I predict future stock prices through Twitter data, news data, intraday trading data, consumer behavior data? That means probably this person is a stockbroker and he is using some of the parameters. That means Twitter data, news data, intraday trading data, and consumer behavior. So these are various data sets, but ultimately, if you break it down into a business problem, a business issue is basically predicting the future stock prices. And these are the data are actually going to change the behavior of the stock prices. Twitter data is a social media data. News is again news is a daily behavioral data. Then intraday trading data will give you about the stock prices, and consumer behavior is here how the what are the stocks people are purchasing or selling. Similarly, the next one, which screenplay of the movie show will give maximum number of views on YouTube or TRPs on TV. It is a company, they are working on media. So they are trying to enumerate what are the type of movies or shows will have maximum viewers. Is it more of a crime or a family or a drama, and how they can find it out? They can find it out probably various type of soaps and serials and movies that has been displayed on TVs, they and the number of people they have watched. Now I think you all have experienced a recent phenomenon when during the this COVID-19 period, Ramayan was again rebroadcasted. A huge number of people they again watched it, and that has also gone to a sort of world record because of the number Indian huge population. So that shows that in some of the type of serials or soaps has got a huge popularity. Similarly, probably some of my means I was when I was analyzing some of the Indian shows and serials, like some of the past one, that is I think uh, in among Hindi soaps and serials, this Tarak Mehta's Ulta Chashma is very popular one with high number of TRPs. In if I recall from my top of my mind, and same goes in various ways. Similarly, if you are more of a digital person and sees, if you are on Netflix, you will see in Netflix there are lot of interesting series, they comes very popular, and there are also particular genres for that. Like if it is a crime genre, they Breaking Bad, year by year by year, still it is a very popular. Similarly, currently the Money Heist is one of the popular one. And how it is popular? Because the number of people are watching, they also capture that data and analyze that data. So now you can see there is a prediction. So if these are the components are present into your future soap or future series, in that case, it may lead to huge number of views. We all understood this digital media problem also. Can I expect? Yes, great. And believe me, all of these data, whatever we are watching, whatever we are liking, everything gets collected through various media. And That is the reason in current world we say data is the king or data is the new oil, because oil has led to the revolution of industrialization earlier, but now with the data, the new change or course of the business is basically changing now. Okay, so on that note, next, will there be any fraudulent activity in our hospital? If yes, how to prevent it? So fraudulent activity in our hospital, it could be anything. It's a healthcare problem. So what type of fraudulent activity? Probably we know that there are many a times in healthcare system there could be healthcare fraud. So what are the examples of healthcare fraud? Probably people has not um, affected by any disease conditions. They have actually gone over there and they have gone spend the time and then they have claimed for it. And sometimes without admission also they have claimed the money. These are the fraudulent activities. But how you can understand it and how you can prevent it? Definitely, they will ask for a series of medical diagnosis data and details, and by analyzing it, it could be find it out. But at the same time, by looking into all the parameters of it, which is basically going to be a feature like that age of that person and its previous prior medical history and current all the diagnostic history put together, there could be a model to find out that individual was basically affected by that condition or not. Or probably if some of the cases, it could be some other type of frauds, like as I was talking about this 24 or the 40 days of hospitalization part of it. That means if somebody is getting admitted very frequently, you can find it out and you can do a post hoc analysis of such conditions. Now coming into the next example, how can we leverage patient history in our prognosis and diagnosis of life-threatening diseases? So here is basically we are trying to find it out an insight. So how we can do, because if you see a certain group of patients, they get a certain group of threats. Like recently, you all have also read about various COVID-19 scenarios. You have seen there are a group of patients has been affected more than the other group in COVID-19. Correct? We have seen some of the indicators. So you can also type a quick yes if you agree with me. For example, there is one very prominent trend, that is age is one of the predictor. If you agree, you can write yes over there. Another predictor we have seen, that is if they have a history of any, means Prithvish has written underlying issues, like I am going to that. That means they have any prior history of cardiovascular problem or diabetes, they has been affected much more. And yes, Gulzar, you are also correct. Nutrition level and habits. Nutrition level means here we have what we have seen. It is something like if somebody is having a bit of deficiency of vitamin D, they have been affected much more. And there are some cases habits means they have told smokers are affected much more. Anirudh, lower immunity. Lower immunity is basically underlying reason, because their lower immunity can be because of multiple reasons. Yes, and genetic disorder, yes. So that means now if we put all of these factors and just imagine this is as a data set, correct? So you have seen patient A, or probably subject A. I will not go into patient A in a population. It's subject A and all of their parameters, and then out in a binary outcome you are seeing affected by COVID or not affected by COVID, and you have created a data set. You all can imagine that. I can expect a quick yes if you can all imagine. Absolutely.
And now we are actually analyzing that data set using any of the tools, irrespective of being it R, Python in nature, or even Excel in nature. In Excel, actually, you can do also concatenate and find out the risk also, but I'm not going into that one. Now, if you are parsing it through some of the programs, we can pre-identify some of the patient clusters or the characteristics. They will call this group has got high risk. That means we can identify high risk groups with this type of characteristics. Agreed? If you all agree, you can write an yes. That means what is a high risk group? That means age that could be probably greater than 50 or 55. Then probably it has been shown almost now not much of gender differences. However, male, it is a bit leaning towards male. Male are at more risk. However, I'm not going into the gender differentiation here. Then the immunity conditions, then the previous history, and then basis of all of these factors, you can actually create a patient profile or persona that could be at high risk. And believe me, this is the same technique is used everywhere to identify suitable, maybe it creating a profile of a suitable customer. Even if you see, if you're trying to create a customer persona, the same way we go over there. Or probably if you're trying to identify uh, who could be a person at risk, the same way we go about it, and that is analytics. So now you can see analytics is basically lead to your business objective or issues, and there you are breaking it down using various tools and trying to answer to that. And the last but not the least, which industry or segment is yet to witness the growth based on its historical data? And this is a very straightforward, and here what we are trying to see, it's more of a business intelligence. What is business intelligence? Probably you are taking various industries together and you are trying to see their growth rate or CAGR, what we call, and based on that CAGR we are basically ranking them. Correct? If we break it down into this way, and that's it, that is going to give an answer. So it is something like the same way. So this shows us how we can actually look into various business issues or business problems and how we can go into solutioning of it. So on that understanding, hope everybody has understood about business issues and business objectives and how to go about it. So let me process to the next. Let me proceed to the next step. Now, I think we have already touched upon it, but now let us try to go a bit more depth into it. So what is a growing need for analytics? Because I have already mentioned to you, the data is a king now, or probably the data is a new oil, because what has happened, believe me, earlier there used to be a data, but there are not much capabilities to process the amount of the data. If someone of you, I think most of you, I can see, mm, I think this group is entirely millennials, but probably if somebody is like generation X like me, or probably generation Y, then they have seen some of the laptops there that used to have 1.5 GB of RAM. I mean, believe me, my first laptop when I have flaunted, so that was 1.5 GB in 2005, and that time that was a high specs laptop. I used to take a very pride on that. And believe me, there when I used to try to open an Excel, which is having around 1000. Oh, okay. So floppy disk and all. Yes, I actually have during my college days I have used floppy. Believe me. So some of my college projects I have written in floppy, and then in CDs and then in DVDs. Uh, so that used to have a very minimum spaces, because believe me, now some of the programs what we write, if we try to keep in floppy, probably that is going to be some 40-50 floppies together all together, and that is a in intense thing. Okay, however, now we can see there is a higher computing power has come, and that has boomed to not only to keep this data or store this data, but at the same time harness the data. Because believe me, wealth and data, there is a similarity. If you're keeping it or storing it somewhere, that is good. However, until and unless you are actually harnessing out and creating a value out of it, it is of not of much value. And how the value can be harnessed out of it? Basically, the data could be used to find out lot of business decisions, so that it can use for future growth, or probably to prevent it from loss. It can go into both the direction. Okay, so now with the big data and various computing powers, now there are abilities to handle large amount of data. And in some of our future classes, we'll see that we'll try to access and handle various complex data format and large amount of data. Although we'll not do in this project scope, there will not be much of a big data handling. However, we'll try to see some examples of large data handling. So there is also earlier the storage of the data, as we are discussing about the floppies and CDs and DVDs. That time those storage system used to be very costly, but now that has also come down, and with cloud and you can see now the data storage could be available in a much more economical way. For example, if any one of you are using probably Gmail and you have already exhausted your Google account of 15 GB, then I think from Google they give you an offer that 100 GB could be available at 130 rupees per month subscription. Just imagine 100 GB at 130 rupees per month subscription. And earlier that used to be a lot costly. Yes. So now, similar way, there are also some lot of cloud storage. I'm not going to talk much about it, because cloud is itself an ocean if you enter into it. But if you have your interest, and I think now as your interest entering into it, okay, now this is an interesting thing. Now Airtel ad has given some cloud space for free. Yes, so now they are also trying. So now the storage has become much more easy, economical. You can see from Karandeep's example, they are also trying to use it as one of the instrument to onboard customers. So that is only possible when it is basically comes into much more economical and scalable way, both economical and scalable way. Good, thank you, Karan. It was a very good example. Now there are also availability of better tools and technology to analyze the large data sets. Like if uh, if you have if we are sitting in the same class probably 10 years back with me, probably I should have taught you about SAS, because that, or probably I can say that I should have taught you about SPSS, because it's not only SAS was in the available, it was also SPSS was available that time. SPSS is another statistical tool, and similarly there were also some of the tools available like Minitab and Stata, but they were basically for very limited scope and individualistic operations. But now, today, when you are sitting and trying to understand about languages and its application for business analytics, What are the options you have? What are the language options you have? Quickly, probably rather than me telling, I can see from you, you can write some of the options in the chat. Then I will keep on adding. What are the language options we have? R, Python, Java, SQL. Awesome, Nitika. Thank you. R, Python, SQL. Okay. I'm watching the space. AWS is not language. AWS is basically it's a cloud system, SaaS. Okay, Karandi, agreed. Tableau is not again a system. It is definitely one of the tool. Tableau is basically for data visualization. Hadoop, again, it's not language. It's basically a method to do big data analysis, but these are basically augmenting tool. Hive, again, it's not, I will not say, these are basically for handling various big data methods. Okay. SAP, yes, to some extent, yes. Legacy, Aditya, good answer. Legacy languages like C, C++ are still can be used. Nimisha, HTML may not be, but to capture the data, yes, I am going with you. Okay. Ruby, PHP, yes, some of the legacy languages could be definitely used. Then there are also Himanshu, very interesting. Now I have got very two interesting languages also from Himanshu and Nitika. Thanks a lot to both of you. Julia and Scala. Yes, Julia is also one of the emerging languages. And Scala, absolutely agreed on that, because if it is a big data, so now you can see there are various options as the PHP. Yes. So let's stop on that and let's come back. So from you, right now we have seen how many languages it came. So that means there are diverse options. So suppose for if it is a large data or a big data where you are trying to do the operations, probably you can use either Spark, PySpark, or you can use Scala. If it is you are trying to write a program where you need a quick computational outcome, you may go with Julia. If you are trying to analyze and you are trying to create a stable system, you can go with Python. If you are trying to create any statistical outcome where you are trying to go with in-depth statistical methods, which is proven and validated, you can go with R. Now, if you are want to go with a secure system and the company has already invested into the secure system, that is SAS. So now you can see how many options are there. And based on the changing scenarios, I have given you some of the use case examples of all of these tools, technology to analyze the large data sets. Yes, all of them can lead you to your end goal. That is that you'll be able to get an outcome of the business objective you will be able to meet using all these tools, but based on various scenarios and needs, you will be able to use any of the tools or probably a pipeline of the tools. That means a combination of the tools, because now as you see it, what used to happen 2 or 3 years back, people used to go many a times for either or scenario. That means I will use either R or Python. But now there are ways where there could be R Python Stan combinations in a project. There are scenarios when you are actually using with SAS, Python and R. So that is actually the way that there are availabilities of various tools and technologies, and based on the business problem, a combination of those could also be used in a pipeline wise way. So that is the reason the learning horizon has gone up and the implementation horizon has also gone up. We all agree on that point? A quick yes or no? Anybody is no, then agree. So let's move on. Guljar Singh, your question. Uh, am I not audible? Okay. Okay. Himanshu has a very good question. I will try to quickly talk about that before we move on. Himanshu, it may be useful to learn various multiple languages, but what is important more that first to have a very good strength on one of the languages. Why I'm telling you? Because even if you are trying to the same example what I was trying to talk, probably you are trying to use a pipeline of multiple languages. In that context, what will happen? In that context also, you will have a base language where you are writing the program. Probably you are writing your entire program in Python, and then you are using some of the R libraries. So you are actually calling them within Python, those functions, and then you are creating a pipeline. So until and unless you understand Python very well, you will not be able to create that pipeline connection. So that is the reason it is always better to first to focus any one of the languages, have a very strong hold that right now in this current business context and on demand basis, because when you learn something, we always learn that we should learn the language which is on demand. Like I'm a big fan of Julia. It is basically could be used for quicker means because the Julia as a language is faster than Python. However, if you see in Indian context, Julia is not very popular language till now. Or probably in the same way, Scala. Scala, it's sometimes the Scala language is for handling the big data, it is better. However, the Scala as a language demands are also it may come in future, probably 2 years, 3 years after, who knows. But before that, what is the language in demand? Means right now on demand. Let us try to understand it in a very clear way. We have a good hold on that, and we can then add our knowledge onto those languages going forward. Hope that answers your question, Himanshu. And sometimes probably if you are having any interesting question, you can raise your hand and you can talk in the class, because it should not only happen that I'm a person talking to a system. That is also very and that was a good question, Himanshu. I appreciate it. So now coming to let us come to our thing. Why Python? Because it is not only that it's one of the language that is on demand right now, so I'm learning it, but we are also learning Python because it is one of the powerful, flexible, open source language that is easy to learn, easy to use, and has powerful libraries for data manipulation and analysis. Now we'll break it down the way we break down any business problem. So first, it is powerful. Powerful means it could be used into multiple domains, across domains. It could be used across implementation. It could be used. We have already talked about it at the beginning of the class. It has been successfully implemented in game development, web development, and analytical methods. So it is very powerful. It is flexible that it can also interact very well with different type of system across operating system, and it is also could interact with other languages seamlessly. It is definitely open source language, and it is easy to learn because there are huge amount of body of literatures that is existing to learn this, and definitely easy to learn depends how you are practicing it and how you are eagerly you are trying to learn it. This is definitely one of the things that depends on the learner to learner, but definitely it is not very difficult to learn, I can say. Easy to use. Once you understand about some of the basic principles and basic implementation, it is comparatively easy than probably. So these all things, easy to learn and easy to use, are comparative to some of the other languages. Like some of you who has written Java program, how much time means I think in your the class when we are talking about it. So when you are writing the Java program, just um, properly mapping the casing function, like it would be a snake case, camel case, and so on and so forth. How much of difficulties you have faced? If anyone you have faced, you can write yes. Who has already written Java? Yes. So you can see some of you when you have written other legacy languages like C, C++ for creating the format give you some sense. I'm not getting it today. I'll not waste much time. So probably I will show you that example during tomorrow's class where it is showing the number, the way it has actually number of packages has gone up. So you can see every day almost some 68 packages are getting added, and there are a lot of interesting packages, table packages, and PyPy implementations of it for data manipulation and analysis. And what are the reasons for this popularity? One is a cost of ownership, that it is an open source, it is free to download and free to implement. Second, versatility. It's a multiple purpose language. I have already talked about this multiple purpose, that various implementation areas of it, and definitely it can be used to build an entire application end to end also. And big data compatibility, it's one of the big go-to language for big data processing due to its wide selection of libraries. And probably now if we try to compare with some of the languages I have talked about, like if you see uh, R and Python, definitely Python is used now much more widely, although earlier is used to be R, but now Python has surpassed it, because earlier the implementation of R was there because a lot of statistical libraries were available in R, but now in Python a lot of stable libraries of statistical implementation has been available. And probably if it is a large amount of data, the in-memory processing of R becomes slow, so Python has actually taken over R. So now Python offers extensive analytic capabilities for text and predictive analytics, because even if you see, probably if you have done some text analytics using Java, and if you do it using Python, you can see the Python provides a lot of interesting functions, because of the developed libraries and frameworks. It provides some advantage of text analytics and predictive analytics. Similarly, various IDs are widely used for data mining, like Spider ID. There are also big data analytics made possible by PyDoop and SciPy. And basically, there are also PySpark is a big data analytics framework that is not mentioned over here. So Python is something like a choice language of choice right now for any data scientist, because it is used for data analytics with stable and rich libraries and writing data, and it's running calculations and creating various graphical representations using matplotlib, data frame operations using pandas, and doing various stats. There are libraries like scikit-learn and all. Then we can write various MapReduce programs using PyDo. And as I was talking, because of in-memory processing, R many times is not able to handle very large amount of data, but Python scores absolutely over there. And in right now in the industry context, right, most of the commonly used language is Python because of these flexibilities, and because what happened in industry, when they select and choose some language, they see the scenarios, and most stable scenarios and reproducibility is always scored over. I think for this class I will try to break it down. What is most stable scenario? That means there could be marginal differences with other language, but even if it is not going much different, they always try to go with a stable version of it. So that is all about the Python, and it is definitely one of the interesting one. Okay, so here also there is a similar type of example. What we can see, number of job posting, which provides us an interesting view of the popularity of language. Although this is a bit old and dated data, but you can see the number of job of Python and big data is scored much more ahead of SAS and big data. Probably in the current context, if you see this graph, it is much more steeper in the case of Python than other two languages. And definitely why to learn about Python? It is the official language of Google. It is among the top in-demand data science skills. Definitely we have seen that example below very clearly. And 46% of the jobs they mention about Python. Although means we have seen if there is anywhere a job that is posted for analytics, SQL is a language is always mentioned about it. But now we can see similarly in all the jobs now they have started posting SQL, Python, and currently it is again in 2015 it is one of the top programming languages, and it is the second most popular data science language. Again, now I think that is a dated data. Now it is the top popular data science languages. And in the context of machine learning, it is definitely the number one languages. And almost all of the big MNC companies or Fortune 1000 companies, they have started using Python for various data science applications. That talks about a huge scope of Python as a language. So are we all feeling a lot enthusiastic to learn Python? I can ask. Okay, Nishita, can you can quicken up your space? Okay, I will take your feedback. I can take your feedback. Now, where to get Python? Okay. The traditional implementation of Python, or basically the nicknamed CPython, is available in python.org. So if you want to install Python, you can actually get Python in here. The current version of Python is 3.8. but the stable version is 3.7. When you are going into the release, you can go current version is 3.8.3, but when you are using with your Anaconda, we will be using the stable version of 3.7. Now, where we can get Python, a number of alternative implementations are available. There is a IronPython, which runs on .NET. There is basically Python that is running on Java Virtual Machine. There is a PyPy implementation, that is the JIT compiler. Then Stackless Python, a branch of CPython supporting microthreads, and there could be MicroPython that is running on microcontrollers. So there could be different type of Python distributions, like ActivePython from ActiveState, Anaconda from Continuum. So I just wanted to show you some of the examples, although we are not going to use all. Anaconda is already open here. You can see it is from Continuum Analytics, and it is one of the most popular Python implementation package we are going to use. We will use Spider and Jupyter within Anaconda. Then this is one of the Python ID. So let me also in this group quickly ping you some of the things so that you can. Okay, so you have already installed. Great. Nishita has installed. I think Nishita is definitely got to learn, but for others also, I'm just sharing this. Earlier, I used to use
Sir, actually, we all have installed Anaconda already.
oh, so there was. This is not your first class.
No, sir, actually,
No, sir.
we have taken some classes from the previous trip.
Yes, sir, we've taken some demo classes.
Yeah,
So the teacher made us install this PyCharm and Anaconda.
yeah, and Spider
Oh,
too. And we were working on Jupyter Notebook.
then I should have been informed about that. I thought well, you might
Okay,
have gone
okay.
through all of this. I thought that this is.
Like,
I was informed that this is
no, we
first
didn't
class.
gone through this such slides and all this basic data. No, so that teacher like started off with the Python straight away,
Oh,
working on
okay.
Python.
So
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
directly
that's
jump
why we
into the.
didn't ask you to skip those slides.
Yeah.
Okay, and whatever I'm trying to explain to you, you are liking it. You are understanding,
Yes,
and
sir.
you are
It was new.
okay. See, there are actually various IDs for data science and implementation of Python. Like currently, you can see a lot of industrial applications are written using using Visual Code. Okay, so I'm just sharing it with you again. Quickly.
So we do have PyCharm also.
Okay. Okay. And believe me, you can write anywhere, you can use this. And I will also request you to install this one. Although this is not a this is not an ID, but these actually help some of the people, some of you, if you have used Java, you might have used Notepad++. Notepad++ is basically a means it's an editor where you can actually write your program and you can check your program. So it also helps in a quicker way. If you are using probably VS Code, or if you are using in a PyCharm, many a times you want to evaluate your code in a quick notepad. This also helps. So this is
Yes,
just a
sir, we have
behavioral
already
program.
installed this.
Notepad++.
Yeah, sir,
Yes,
we
sir,
have
it's
already
inbuilt, I
installed it.
guess.
We haven't used it, but we have already installed it. The trainer before you is told us to install this.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I think he has done means some of my part already. Okay,
Yes, sir. Like
nonetheless,
the
let us.
actually problem was that he was too fast for us. Like we were not getting things what he was teaching. He was too fast for us.
Okay, because I was told to explain to you in details. That is the reason probably you are finding it a bit slow, because I am actually trying to explain each points to you.
No, no, sir. Your speed is fine. Like it's not an issue.
Okay.
So
And
we had
similarly, lot
started
of,
working on Jupyter.
yes, Jupyter is one
We've
of the
already
most
started coding.
commonly
Yeah,
used
sir.
IDs. Even probably, I think they definitely this is the one he has not shown to you. Well, he has shown you to Google Colab.
No, sir.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir, audible now.
I think there was basically a momentary disconnect into my internet. So I think there was a lapse for some minutes. So as I was trying to showing it to you, and believe me, this is also going to be a good tool for you. Apart from working in system, just all of you go to Google Colab. This is basically, I will show you an example of it. Now you can see. You might have already installed Jupyter, correct? You are familiar with Jupyter. So now, as I'm going to Google Colab, so this looked familiar to you, this structure. This
Yes,
is a, so this is a structure of a basically a Jupyter notebook, correct? And believe me, for all of us, it is actually available for free. So Google has made it available. Like you might have seen, and this is this is sitting in cloud. So the advantage of using Google Colab is, and it is a very popular tool among, especially among data scientists, because you might have heard about GPUs and TPUs, correct? So probably we are just starting off. So for some of the advanced analytics and image analytics, we need graphical processing unit apart from our CPU in computer. So for that, here it is available in such a way that you can use some of the components, and otherwise if you want to use it in your system, probably you have to get those GPUs, which is basically very costly. So that is the reason, if you are doing some of the advanced analytics on images and all, if you need GPUs, and Google provide also free TPUs, so we actually use Google Colab. And it is as simple as that. You can create a new notebook. It is always sitting on the cloud. You don't have to install anything in your system, and you all are using Google Drive, correct? You can see in your Google Drive, it will actually create a folder, and your all the codes will get saved over there. Sound interesting, all of you?
yes, sir.
So these also you can actually use parallelly, what I can say. But only thing is, you know how to write things also over here. I think that person has already shown you how to write your hello programs. You can see here,
Yes, sir.
writing the programs like this. So
So
you have
I'm not
already,
able to find this.
okay. Shall I show you step by step?
Yeah,
Just
sir.
go to Google Colab.
Yeah. I've opened
Okay.
Google Colab. Yeah.
Okay, click on notebook. So as you are already having Anaconda, I thought that we'll start with Anaconda installation, but you're having Anaconda, so I'm just showing it to you. You can see. This has opened for you.
It's opening, sir.
You can then actually copy, means once you click this on a copy to drive, it will actually go and save into your drive. Similar way, you can actually start with a new notebook. Even not only that, you can also upload your existing notebook also here. Means if you have written
So
any of the,
how do I access this already Python, this tutorial that you opened? You have it with yourself, or it is something that's already provided in this notebook?
you are asking about this particular one?
Yeah, so this code.
Okay. Okay, actually, I have actually created it for the other classes. But if you want to access this, I will also show it to you. Can I quickly, if I want to share this with you, we can actually share with the entire group. You can see how easily we can share. Can I have all of your emails at once, one by one? And I will just keep on adding it over there. And then at the end, I will just share it with you. You will get entire code. So that is the reason I am a big fan of Google Colab. Especially if you are doing debugging, if you are doing step-by-step analysis of it, and if you are learning for that purpose. Yes, within the organization, when you are using it, that is a different scenario. Just let me start adding one by one. And it's a one-time effort. Next time in the class, if I'm just going to add, your all of your names will come in this group. I can just share it with you.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, please. Hello.
Yeah. So, sir, is it preferred to use IDs or we should use notebooks instead? I've heard that, as my personal experience, notebooks are quite more familiar and easy to use. But some of my friends who are working in corporate, they tell me that at production level, they always end up using IDs like PyCharm,
That
PyTorch.
is a very good question you have asked. I will give an answer to it. Basically, if it is a production environment, the same thing what I have told. When you are trying to learn, okay, then it is always preferred to use it in a notebook. But when it goes to industrial production, in that case, it is always recommended to use it basically in a IDE fashion. So we will learn both. because initially when you are learning it step by step, then in that case what we can do, we can actually use some of the IDs. However, use some of the notebooks I am trying to show. But once you are much more well versed with it, then we can actually go into IDs. So are you good, or you want to start with IDs?
Sir, I have worked with notebooks, but when I start with IDs, I find them very complicated. So I personally want to go with IDs because at the end we are going to do our work in ID. You know.
Okay. So for ID we will use Spider, but at the same time probably if you want to go use some of the industrial IDs, even the more than Spider, there it is basically the VS Code and Eclipse type of IDs are used. So I will show you them also. Nonetheless, don't worry. So
Sure, sir.
the the way, but not in today's class, okay? Because it's a diverse class. But I have already have your concern noted. So slowly and gradually, when we are doing some of the implementation, so there I will actually talk about how to write init, initial files and start files, because when we write in notebook, we do not follow a lot of those procedures and methods, correct? That was your concern. Am I
Yeah.
correct?
Yes, sir.
So I will try to address that. So I think all of you have given your email IDs and I have copied. But at the same time, you tell me, means when you are trying to do, I think you have also spoken with your friends, when they do a lot of debugging, so in that case they run it step by step in a much more in a notebook fashion, correct?
Yes, sir. And they prefer Google Colab only.
I know. So actually that is the way now. Even my teammates and juniors, I have seen the same same behavior. Especially what happens in that case, means although you cannot always use Google Colab, because a lot of the organizations, they, because you know Google Colab is an open source, so I have, so as it is one of the open source, many organizations do not prefer using an external open source live means notebooks and all. But for our learning purpose, let's go with that. So now I have sent an email. Means I think if you can go into your Gmail, you can see that it's already shared with you. If anybody is missed, I will probably add it, because it was good number of people I have already added. So now if you go into your Colab, you can see all of, for all of them it is already available now. Anybody is missed? Anybody has not got? And anybody who has missed, for them they can actually open it using this. Prithviraj, your email ID, Prithviraj? So that is the reason I was trying to show. Means if you go, if you want to go into it, some of the ID based methods, then we will be using Spider, we'll be using PyCharm, or probably in some of the advanced, I will try to also show you this advanced classes, this Visual Studio, sorry, because currently a lot of people, they have actually started using more and more Visual Studio. If you talk with some of your friends, you will also see that, because it is a very good user-friendly editor to use. So now if we go over there, have you got the code? all of you? So we'll move forward quickly. So I think this part he has actually talked about in the previous class. You have understood about anaconda, miniconda, and all these parts about anaconda distribution in your previous class. Hello. Oh,
No, so just anaconda.
okay. So let me actually basically talk about it, because I don't know how it has. Sorry, means there is a small gap, but now I will try to fill it. So basically, you have already Anaconda installed in your system, and it has got some of the Conda environments and package and environment manager, package manager. So have you tried to install packages through Anaconda, through Conda install methods? Those things they have shown to you. Or means how to add various packages and those. Because if I open my Anaconda, because I have actually planned, there is a small disturbances happened because yesterday I have uninstalled my Anaconda, and I have the get it downloaded with me, because I thought that with the class I will show starting from the installation to every step. So that has been bit. So let me talk theoretically right now, and probably meanwhile I will keep it ready, so then the next class I will show you some of the examples also. So Anaconda actually has got a Conda systems to install various packages and manage environments. You can do write Conda install, and you can install various packages at the same time in a GUI way or a graphical way also. You can install various packages. And Conda is basically an open source package management system and environment. The package management system for installing multiple versions of software package. It works across the system. That means across the operating system of Linux. It also works with Mac and Windows. And Miniconda is basically a mini version of Anaconda, where only the Conda functions and dependencies and Python is installed. The current Anaconda distribution is using Python 3.7. Although when we have gone into the Python website, we have seen that the current Python version is 3.8.3, and in one of my Jupyter notebook I use 3.8.1. However, for if you go see right now, most of the industrial distributions are coming, or the offices that it is implemented 3.6, but now 3.7 in Anaconda is basically a stable version. So now if you are having, all of you are having the same version of Python in your system, it always makes a sense. So probably tomorrow in our next class, when we'll start with a Python version check and uniform versions. Those tasks we'll also do. Then going into the next part, what is Anaconda? Anaconda is basically a level install of version. Just hold on, Prithvi. I'm just sharing this. Oh, okay. Prithvish, you have to give a please give a Gmail ID. You're giving Hotmail. I think that's the reason it's not taking, because it's a pull-up function is with. I can send you the mail. Please give a Gmail ID to access that, because it's a Google service. It is not recognizing your ID. That case. Nonetheless, coming back to Anaconda. In Anaconda, we can actually use Conda install various binary packages. We can also use our essential packages like NumPy, SciPy, and there is also one of the IDs available, that is Spider ID, which we are going to use. So this is installing Anaconda. I think you have also already seen that, and you have installed the Anaconda from Continuum, which is available in yours with you, and it has got a very stable packages of more than 330, and it is growing continuously. And there are also Anaconda distributions, which is for enterprise use and professional use. A lot of organizations use Anaconda also, but we are going to use the Anaconda. We go into Anaconda and its various distributions. We are going to use individual edition. You all have installed basically the individual edition, correct? So you have already installed it in Windows. So let me skip this slide. So I have already talked about the version of Python right now is available. All of you are if you have recently installed, it will be having Python 3.7 installed in your Anaconda version. Installing, I'm just skipping. So I think you can now see all of these components are available within your Anaconda. Like you can see Jupyter Notebook, Jupyter Console. You can also see Spider IDE. You can also see IPython. And apart from it, you can also see the Anaconda prompt, where you can write it in a CLI manner. So writing, so what is basically difference between notebook and IDE? When we actually see, probably that is an example I can show it to you. When we write something in a step-by-step manner and execute, that is much more of a notebook, because here what we are seeing, we are writing a program and we are seeing an example and output of it. But in IDE, we write all of our programs at one go within some class and structures and modules within that, and then we are actually trying to execute. For example, this is not an thing I'm trying to tell you to now. I'm actually trying to show it to you now. You do not have to do it right now. So if I try to go into any of the examples, now so here what I'm doing, trying to do here, have I written it step by step? But you can see I can get a result. And then you can see if I should have written this in a notebook fashion, then first this part was in a separate cell of notebook where I'm actually calling various libraries. Then this part is basically where I'm loading various type of data. Then here I'm actually calling for some clustering, and then ultimately here I'm actually doing the end output to show. So now I think some of you were actually asking me about the differences in a notebook way of writing and in an IDEO way of writing. Oh, okay. Means this just I have shown it to you for example. Scikit-learn is basically a machine learning library. We'll definitely learn about scikit-learn, but this is just to show you an example of it. So to show basically the differences in example, how the writing methods differ in a notebook fashion and in basically IDE fashion. So scikit-learn is basically one of the libraries of Python of machine learning. Just to show you the example, I have shown this to you. You do not have to replicate this right now. Don't worry, we'll come to it. But I just wanted to show some of you have asked some question. To answer that, I have shown this example to you. Hope that makes sense to all of us. Can I expect a quick yes, no? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And you can see in IDs also, we can write we are going to use Spyder for that purpose from the next class onwards. And in Spyder, there are various components to it. Look into means where to explore the file or means how to create the new files. All of these functions. Rather than this going to slide by slide, when we are going to use it, I'm going to show it to you, and then we are going to use the history console and all of these functions when we are actually working into it. So meanwhile, what I will request to you for today, so you all have actually already installed Jupyter Notebook and understood about Notebook, and I wanted to write the Hello World program, but you have already written Hello World program with somebody else. Nonetheless, so we'll do the hello again. So you all have got access to this. So try not this one, my notebook, which I have shared with you, and try to understand, at least to understand about the code logic purpose of it. Like you can see here, the way we write the Python program, some of the examples I have given, the way we write the comment example has been given, and the way we perform some of the mathematical functions, that example also I have given. Some of you who has done Python programming before, it is not basically great for them. It's very simple examples. However, someone who is trying to learn the basic of the program, they can quickly look into this, and you can actually do some of these activities also, which we will follow it up in the next class. So on that note, a quick feedback for me. So what are the things you want me to improve? What are the things you want me to reduce? And what are the things you want me to add in the future class? A quick feedback for me. From all of you, because that will help me to set up the pace of the class, because my plan, the way I was going, it has been a bit disrupted because some of the things has been already completed. It was a half-baked thing, so I will try to improve that. So can I have a feedback from all of you quickly? Okay, keep checking. Okay, one thing is I need to make it a bit fast. I can do that, but not very fast. That also I understood. Any other feedback? Okay. On concepts, the way okay, the way I'm explaining your doubts and problems and trying to explain the concepts to you, are you fine with that? Okay, sure. So on that note, um, okay, sure. So what I will please, my humble request to you, have all have got the access to this code. This Python tutorial 1.1, and please do explore that. There are some interesting programs I have also written, and I can see already some of you are doing it. I think people, I have given actually editor access to all of you, but at the same time, what I will recommend to you, please do copy a version. Do not run directly from there, because if you do make any changes and all, it will actually change this program. So because because in this program, what access I have given it to you is basically editor function. So please do not edit on the program, rather copy it in your own drive, okay, and then start editing it, because I can see already you have started running it. There's some good thing that you are enthusiast, but first copy it and run. Okay, so on that note, and I think sure, statistical part I will definitely explain, means that requires a lot of explanations. Which has not got still. Now you just check, Prithvesh, have you got access to that? Okay, sure. Please please make a copy in your drive, and please do start exploring it. We'll come into much more into the next steps of it. Okay. On that note, wish all of you a great day ahead, and see you in the next class. Thank you.